They don't want
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for coming to the June 29th edition of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Appropriation and Advisory meeting. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. And without objection, the Board of Selectmen Chair will facilitate the joint meeting with the FAA Chair.
No objection.
Calling for a separate vote of the FAA as he may require or any action relative to the FAA and permissible.
Correct.
We're good?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is citizen comments. This is for residents of the town of Dudley, and this would be anything that is not on tonight's agenda.
Hi.
Your name and address, please?
My name is Adriana Buda, 27 Susan Drive in Dudley.
Yes.
We were here a couple of days ago and we talked about all the cuts that we need to make. And I went home and I looked at the spreadsheet again and I realized that Mr. Ruda got an increase of $2,000. So I'd like to know how does the math work? How come we let go like firemen and policemen, but some other people get more money? Even if it's of 1 cent, it's not the right time. Thank you.
May I answer this? Would anyone like to answer this? Would you like me to answer this? We have contracted increases. There are a number of contracted employees. We have union contracts. It's a contracted increase. We have to go by the contract. That's the answer.
Thank you. I think it's not the right time.
Understood. Anyone else? Anything that's not on tonight's agenda?
That's for life.
Okay, moving forward. Town Administrator's Report. Mr. Ruda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So since Monday, we've spent a lot of time, I mean, when I say we, I mean department heads and internally, spent a lot of time getting ready for tonight's meeting. So there's not much other than the budget to talk about tonight, so I'd like to move on to new business, if that's all right with you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. New business, 5A, schedule special town meeting and special election. Board of Selectmen considers recommendation of FAA and department heads at the pleasure of the BOS and/or FAA Chair, and Board of Selectmen votes to transmit to date of special town meeting and special election to the town clerk or takes any action relative thereto.
Mr. Chairman, this gives us the option to do two things. One of them we have to do, we have to legally have a balanced budget. So we have a balanced budget that we pretty much began reviewing and ended last Monday, ready for a recommendation for from the FAA. We would want that balanced budget to appear on a special town meeting called by the Board of Selectmen. That would be the first thing. The second thing is the other option that we discussed, which was to call another override vote. I've prepared a menu, and I'm prepared to show what additional monies would be part of that vote. And so we would be asking for the Board of Selectmen to vote to call the special election and transmit that to the town clerk tonight within the 35-day allowance.
So as far as that, Mr. Ruda, what would you be looking for from either the FAA or the Board of Selectmen?
We'd be looking for a vote to call a special town meeting. Special town meeting for July 24th to balance our budget.
Are you looking for a motion to that effect?
In either order, in whatever order you prefer, Mr. Chairman, we'd have to go over the budget with the FAA and get a recommendation from them as well.
Does the FAA have any?
Well, you're looking for a recommendation on the date of the special town meeting?
We're looking for a recommendation, Mr. Chairman, from the FAA relative to
The budget?
the motion for the budget. Motion to approve, motion to make any changes, motion to disapprove, motion to pass over.
The new budget that you're proposing with the additional cuts with water and sewer added to it's 25,244,597. Is that the correct number?
It's the one that everyone should have a handout on.
This one here?
Should be up on the screen right now. On the line item spreadsheet, the total general fund is $20,903,480.
But you want us to make a motion including the water and sewer amounts also, right?
So I also have in the packet proposed a town meeting warrant, which I'll put up. It's 2 questions, done in a similar manner that we always do it. Shows the departmental bottom lines. And then when the warrant is voted and approved, it will be $25,244,598. And that includes the enterprise funds.
And that includes all the cuts you laid out, the additional cuts you laid out.
That includes all the cuts that we laid out Monday, which are all line itemed here on the line item budget.
Mr. Chairman, and I speak for myself here, this is an awfully difficult recommendation to make. When I left here Tuesday night, looking at this, looking at what we're going to do to our town, imploding our town this way with these kind of cuts, I do appreciate you going through each department and finding the cuts, but how I felt the other night, volunteering to do this to our town, I just, at that point, felt that I couldn't make a recommendation on a budget like this. I know you're looking for a recommendation. However, some additional information I just learned about, and I was wondering if I may be able to ask some questions, maybe somebody can answer my questions. If this budget that we are going to pass at this town meeting, if this budget fails, and we have to bring this budget, or if the school committee has a super meeting between the 2 towns, I really would like a definitive answer if this budget, this assessment amount from the school committee can be amended on the floor. Anybody from the school committee may be able to answer that?
Yes.
Kathy Carmignani, 49 Airport Road. While we don't see, we've asked that back to our regulators. We have talked to other communities that have done this, and they have seen on the floor amendments both up and down. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So it's permissible then that this assessment at the town meeting, if an employee, if a citizen from, say, Charlton, or even a citizen from Dudley decides to get up and amend this assessment up, we could be required to pay even additional amounts of money and make an additional cut. So with that being said, even though I'm not in favor of making these cuts, I personally now can't take the chance. I feel like I got a gun to my head. I personally can't recommend against passing this budget now. We need to get this passed, because if it can be amended, we can lose a lot more money. So,
Mr. Mayor, I believe Mr. Marcy has it.
Isn't there enough, there's a step in between there and a district meeting?
well, it's the next meeting. So our special
Our
town meeting,
Our special town.
if this budget fails, it can go to a two-town meeting in which this assessment can be amended up. If it's amended up, we're gonna be required to make even further cuts than we've already done.
That's right.
So taking that chance, I think it's not worth taking that chance. If this is gonna be taken from us, my personal attitude was, if it's gonna be taken from us, I'm not gonna voluntarily recommend it be taken from us, let it be taken from us. But at this point, I'm not gonna recommend against, for that. I'm not gonna recommend that we don't pass this, because it could be a lot more money. So this needs to pass on the floor of our special town meeting.
Mr. Sullivan.
Right, and I think Mr. Marcy hit the nail on the head. It'd be no different than any other town meeting. The first town meeting would be Dudley residents only, and it'd be just like any other budget meeting. If the 100 people shows up and 51 people say no, then they have the right to go to special town meeting, which I think they've made abundantly clear in their actions and their words. That's where they're gonna go. If it passes at town meeting, we have to make the cuts anyway. So our hands are metaphorically bound. It's the will of the voters at this point. Or, as Mr. Ruder explained, inaction on our behalf means it passed. So at a minimum, we have, I'm not, believe me, and I apologize to people Monday night if I was a little, I don't think I was out of line, but I was not a very happy person, and if I said things that was offensive, I do apologize. But we have to follow the process. And again, it's like any other town meeting. People get up all the time. We had a lady at the last town meeting that wanted to amend the budget and line item by line item, department by department. That's the nature of the beast. We have to complete this process to get to the end result.
Right. Will of the people. You said it well. Mr. Marcy.
And will this still be a contingent budget based on other actions that we may vote on tonight, Mr. Ruda?
So the second part of this is that we're going to consider, the board will consider a override for August 17th. It'll be a menu option. And that override will include additional amounts of money shown here. Line by line, the total will be less than the 1,674,000 that's been asked for the municipal side of the budget through the first two overrides. It doesn't mean that by any stretch of the imagination that those weren't real numbers. It means that we're taking more of a haircut in order to hopefully provide the voters with menu options as to what they want to fund for FY24. So the circuit breaker to the special town meeting, the super meeting, where both Dudley and Charlton voters come together and decide what the school assessment will be. The circuit breaker for that, which we'll get to, will be question 5 as part of the override menu vote, which includes $901,683 for the district assessment. If that passes, it puts us back at the non-contingent footing of 10%. And from there, we'll have question 4, 3, 2, and 1. It'll include the library, highway, public safety, and municipal costs, including staffing.
Anything? Mr. Landry?
Mr. Chairman, if that's where the FAA stands, and if you have anything from the department heads, what's your pleasure? I'd like to make a motion.
Do they have to go first, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you need our recommendation first.
Mr. Mayor made it clear that was his opinion as a citizen, not as the chairman.
That's why I asked if it was a recommendation.
So the recommendation, the voted recommendation from the FAA, as long as it comes before the time that the gavel drops for the town meeting, can be voted at any time. That's a recommendation to the town meeting. That's the scope of their responsibility. calling the special town meeting is the scope of the selectmen's responsibility.
So at this point, Mr. Ruda, what, are you looking for a motion?
I'd like a motion to call a special town meeting and to open the warrant, which I believe is covered in a sheet in the drive.
Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, so we heard a personal opinion from the chairman at FAA. Would it still be possible to ask for, the chairman would ask the FAA
Yes.
what's their pleasure?
Yeah, we're gonna call a vote at some point here for a recommendation. Before I do that, just want to know if is there any department heads here that have any issues with the recommendations that Mr. Ruder has made on these cuts and does not agree with them and wants to move them?
Yes. Ms. Carter?
Good evening. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Drusilla Carter. I am the director of the Crawford Memorial Library. As of this afternoon, my staff and I have been laid off. And I want to make it very clear what this budget means for the town of Dudley. As soon as we close our doors, our last day open will be July 22nd, Dudley loses certification. Now, I understand that people say, oh, that means you won't be able to use your library card at our library. What that means is that if your residence is in the Dudley zip code 01571, you may not get a card from any other library in the state. You may not check out items from any other library in the state. So every one of the students who have been coming in to get summer reading materials, our local business owners, our senior citizens, every one of those will be completely without library services. That is what this budget does. I also want to make sure that the Selectmen and the FAA are aware that in 2010, the town of Dudley signed a contract for a state construction grant for $2.6 million to build the Crawford Memorial Library. The day that our doors close and we become decertified, that amount is due to be returned to the state with 13 years of interest within 60 days. So I want to be very sure that you all realize that not only are you closing our doors, but you are putting Dudley deeper in a hole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Mr. Chair, while she's up.
Ms. Carter?
So,
Mr. Sullivan?
thank you. At the last meeting, it was phrased to us by one of the trustees that it may be recalled, or it's a definite.
I have spoken to James Lonergan, who is the head of the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and according to, I can even give you the state code, it is Massachusetts Code 605 CMR 6.05. That is state law, that those monies will be due with interest the day that, within 60 days of the day of decertification.
Thank you. Okay. Any other department head wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ruda?
I agree with what Drusilla just told us, and I think she's playing to a captive audience in that everyone's aware of what will happen when the library closes, and I certainly have my vote. I may go out on a limb and say maybe the Board of Selectmen will vote accordingly. The people you want to make aware of this is not the people sitting up here at this rostrum. It's the people who are going to come and vote. So please don't spend a lot of time telling us what we know and what we intend to vote for. We will help you sell it to the public. The voters, those are the people who are going to refund the library, not the 5 people sitting up here.
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. Any other department heads wish to speak? Mr. Karlowitz. Chief Karlowitz.
Just real quick, I'm sure all the other department heads are in the same boat as I am. We've invested a lot of time, a lot of training into the workers. One of the officers that could be laid off is here, and she was top class. She was a top in her class in the academy. She is certified in sexual assault investigations, and I can tell you right now, if the town loses her, we will not get her back because somebody will steal her. And I think that's just it's a loss to the town. So I'm sure the other departments are feeling the same.
Any other department heads? Chief Kochanowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I can just reiterate what I've said the last 2 times. Everybody knows what the fire department's facing. We basically have 2 guys on shift, left, nothing else, provides 1 ambulance, maybe. And again, I'm in the same boat as Chief Karlowitz. I mean, I have a real great group of guys. Most of them are standing behind me. They're very knowledgeable and well-trained, and same thing. You know, if this doesn't get rectified in a few months, I'll start losing people too. I don't want to, but I can't say I would blame them because everybody around is hiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, Jeff?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, obviously, I'm not comfortable with where this would leave us. But I think given the financial outlook for the town, I know everybody's had to take some pretty serious cuts. This would leave me with 3 highway employees and a buildings and grounds employee. So I had a conversation last week with the town administrator, and he said, I'm kind of concerned about what's going to happen with snow and ice removal, and I share the same sentiment. It's and beyond that, just from a maintenance standpoint, it leaves us in a pretty poor position without a budget for dangerous tree removal and a lot of the other items that are in my budget that are reduced, and then basically a skeleton staff that leaves us ineffective for most of what we'd be doing. Requirement to hire part-time employees or outside contractors to manage snow and ice when we get to wintertime, and you know, again, beyond that, if we have any storm damage or anything like that, it's just not a good scenario.
Question, Jeff.
Mr. Sullivan, go ahead.
Jeff, also, for the people out there, as we're talking about coming short-staffed, one of the gentlemen being laid off is also a mechanic operator, and I know some of the guys left have skills, but you'll be losing your full-time mechanic. Well, when I say full-time mechanic, he's also an operator.
Correct.
He has a plow run, he jumps on the truck. But that would also incur more costs when things break. What little you can put on the road, if it breaks, it'll incur more costs that you have to contract it to a shop to get fixed. And I'm sure those line items were cannibalized. So it's more than just numbers. It's reality. It's right in our face. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I also wanted to say while I'm up here too that, you know, it's kind of an unfair shot to take at the town administrator to say that he's taking a raise with a contractual obligation where every single contracted employee or union member in the town realizes in their contract a salary increase, and there's absolutely nothing that can be done about that. So,
You know, Mr. Chairman, that was interesting, and I should have said it at the time, I didn't. I find it ironic, again, that our board, and by extension the town administrator, gets singled out. Did the person also go home and look at the spreadsheet, for example, and see if anybody on the school side got a raise? And like Jeff just said, contracted employees on the town side did, but did anybody look the other way? Because we're in this shared crisis because of the number that's over and above the assessment. So I just want to, what's fair is fair. And we can, big boys up here, we can take the hits. But the unmitigated shot at individuals should not be tolerated.
I would agree, and again, I just think it's unfair to do that, and I'm sure that there's contractual obligations with the school department, and to pit one department against another would be also unfair. So. That's all.
Mr. Sullivan, I just wanted to let you know why I let that go. I let that go because I give credit to people who show up and speak. And I'd rather have it out in the open than in the shadows.
Oh, I agree.
Have it out in the open, we can talk about it. Like I said during candidates night, conversations, that's how we fix things. That's how we answer questions. And that's why I allowed it. Mr. Ruda, I have I'm sorry? Mr. Carmignani, please, go ahead.
Good evening. For clarification, regardless of the other line items, there's no change to my salary or my person who sits next to me. She got 20 cents an hour last year for an increase, so wanted to bring that up, that yes, there are contractual obligations, but there are other sections of the budget that do not include increase for people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmignani. But, Mr. Ruda, I had a question. I noticed on new business 5A and 5B, they seem somewhat similar but different. Are you looking for different motions for each one? I see on 5A regarding scheduling a special town meeting and special election, where B is the reconsideration of the budget. So are you looking for separate motions, one to schedule the town meeting and the special election and another to reconsider the budget?
So I wanted to reopen and take another look at the budget to the degree that the FAA wanted further clarification on the cuts, or anyone else wanted further clarification on the individual line items, the total sum of which will make up the override, the 5 override menu items. I just wanted to give us the ability to do that if it was asked for by either the FAA or the Board of Selectmen.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Well, not at this point. I mean, unless there's any other department heads that have any discrepancies in the way these cuts are applying to the budget. Somebody else.
We've heard from all of the department heads here. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen call...
You need to,
I mean, we can recommend the budget if you want to.
go ahead. I wasn't sure if you were waiting. I
so,
wasn't sure if you were waiting for another meeting.
Okay, so.
No, go ahead.
I don't know. So, basically, unfortunately, we've got this excrement sandwich we have to swallow right now. So, it's $25,244,597. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve that budget? And again, if it's not approved on the special town meeting, it will go to a 2-town meeting, and it can be amended up. So, it's extremely important that...
So, I've seen some clarification here, is that from the library standpoint, if this budget goes through, the library is closed. And we're looking like from the difference between what the override was and where we are now, which is about $2 million. So we're gonna recommend a budget $2 million less than the override, and we're gonna take that $2 million and we're still have to send it back to somebody. Is that what I'm understanding?
901, I believe, is the number, right, John? For the assessment to the...
The $2 million for the library. Thank you.
Ms. Carter?
Yes. So as soon as this budget is passed, which closes the library, the town of Dudley will owe the state $2.6 million plus 13 years' worth of interest. That is the consequence for closing the library doors, and it does not matter whether our doors are closed for a week or a year. As soon as the building is no longer in continuous service as a free public library, that penalty applies.
Thank you.
So at this point, then, the cuts to the library, if we're not gonna close the library, we're gonna find that same cut in the rest of this budget. Any suggestions, Mr. Ruder, on that? You wanna amend any of this? 'Cause I don't know where that would come from.
Where it would come from, we would wipe out our patrol force. That's where it would come from.
I mean, somebody else is gonna have to take the cut.
There's no money sitting anywhere that's and keep the library.
You know where it has to come from,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I don't see anything else in here, unless we start running furloughs.
Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, what's your suggestion of where those cuts would come?
I don't have any suggestion. We've looked at this a million times. I cannot, this is like, again, I'm gonna say it again, this is a total excrement sandwich for us. There's no good answer for us.
No.
One way or another, the money is going to be taken.
This is an ugly situation, no matter which way you look at it. It's an ugly situation. And it's uncomfortable for all of us. We're all, for lack of a better word, we're all pitted against each other.
I'll go back.
Mr. Marcy.
Well, let me say it a little more clearly for those who see what the FAA chair is talking about here. There's two choices here. We either do this budget, or we tell the schools they can't have their 901,000, and then they'll come take it, right? Which is why we want the voters to really understand why we have to ask them in a menu-style fashion what they prefer to have funded, so we had something to make that up. Those are the choices. That's where we're at. This is all, books are wide open.
Rock in a hard place.
You know, Mr. Chair, again, to be clear, we're in a, town side is in like a reactionary mode.
Right.
We're not here because we are asking for more. We're here at minus 10% across the board already. And with the new numbers, the department heads went back and adjusted some more. But we're, and believe me, I feel for the library. I feel for the police, everybody. We're strictly in a reactionary mode outside of our control because we're faced with a request that far exceeds the assessment. And as I said at the last meeting, our costs have gone up. Mr. Carmignani can come up and talk about his side of the budget with insurance and everything. Fuel, everything, electricity to run the place. Our costs have gone up. And we're looking at a 10% minimum, 10% across the board. It has to, I don't think, I'm sure people are getting the message at home, but finally, it's a reactionary move on our behalf, and it's an awful place to be in. It's an awful spot.
It's ugly. Anyone? Mr. Mayor?
I guess this is a little different of a question. Maybe I can ask this of one of the members of the school committee. The super town meeting that will take place. Never seen one of those. So where would this take place? And what's the capacity of the place? And so in other words, how many people are gonna be able to vote for this stuff? How does this take place if we do get to this point? Anybody have any ideas of that?
Mr. Johnson?
Good evening, Stephen Lamarche, Superintendent. I've not experienced it before, but we've been doing our research. A special district-wide meeting is what it's called, regulatory-wise, and it's every voter in either community can attend. So we need to be able to accommodate any voter who attends. So some districts have had it outside on their football field, because they typically do happen in the warmer climates when these meetings do occur. But any voter who is a registered voter in the town of Dudley or the town of Charlton can attend this meeting.
So you would probably have it up at the Shepherd Hill Field, is that how?
Yeah, we have not worked out the logistics at this point in time, but I'm just giving you the general response, yes.
I'm trying to get to the point of avoiding this.
We are too.
But I'm just
We would
wanting to
like
know
to
what happens. I mean, if it's inside, if it's raining out, and we have to fill our auditorium and the cafeteria, and then...
Mr. Mayor, how is this pertinent?
Well, yeah, I have
I understand where you're going, and...
another method
I
of what
understand.
I'm thinking. I'm just wondering how many people are gonna actually attend this thing, if we get to that point. How do you go?
Nobody knows. Roll the dice. Nobody knows.
We have no answers for that, so.
500, 1,000, 3,000?
10,000?
We don't know. But the numbers we do have some control over are in front of you now.
So, again, I go back.
It's ugly, Mr. Chairman. It's ugly.
I'll go
Regardless of which way you look at it.
I'll go back to my committee. Anybody want to make a motion to approve this budget?
The number would be, Mr. Chairman, $25,244,597. That's right off the warrant. Proposed warrant. And it's a 2-article warrant.
So,
I make a motion that we approve the budget for $25,244,597.
Do we have a second? Second. All right, we have a second. Is there any more discussion on any of this stuff?
I guess the only thing I got here, again, going back to the library, is, you know, we're going to have these special agenda items. Would this be, Pat, just looking from number 4 for the library, if that passes at that time on that day, is that, I think we were talking about a July 22nd date when the library would close. This meeting's not till the 24th.
That's right. Ms. Carter?
The day that the library closes, those extra charges, the refund of the grant money is required. Decertification goes into effect immediately. Recertification is not possible until the library has been fully funded at the state mandated amount. That is not the 10% cut that was proposed, is the full amount for a full fiscal year. So that would be, if somehow the town came up with the money next fiscal year, it would not be until 2025 that we would receive certification and Dudley residents could use other libraries. The day the doors close, these penalties go into effect, including that payment to the state becoming due within 60 days.
Thank you.
Is there any emergency provision in the trust fund to help out with this?
No.
Anything?
No, the way that the trust, that all of our other funding sources are very carefully limited. You know, state aid cannot be used to pay salaries. The endowment is specifically worded for things that are not in line items. And obviously, basic operational expenses are in the line items of our budget.
And the endowment cannot be amended with a
Not without the
trustees?
permission of the Crawford family, because it is a donor-directed fund. So the Crawford family would have to alter that. And I can tell you that they are not likely to do that.
Even with the closure of the library? Okay.
I mean, we would be looking at extending the closing date by a couple days. That's where we're at right now, right? You're closing on the 22nd, we're voting on the 24th. There's nothing we can do?
We can't speed it up. We-
Yeah, so as,
The state gives us timelines with.
Okay.
Okay.
This is the quickest vote we can get.
This is the quickest one.
All right, so we have, is there any other discussion on this budget? None? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And did you? Okay. All right, unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Landry.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen call a special town meeting for July 24th, 2023, and open the warrant on Friday, June 30th, 2023, and close the warrant 8 a.m. on Friday, July 7th, 2023.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Marcy.
So just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, for the town administrator, that is the soonest we can have that meeting, correct? The 24th of July?
That's as soon as we can have that meeting. We have to open and close, we have the warrant open, we have to give a few days, we have a holiday coming up next week. We got to give a little bit of time to have the warrant open and closed according to our bylaw.
Yep.
And then it's literally 14 days before. You have to have it posted 14 days beforehand.
Yep. No, I just wanted everybody to be aware that that is what I was thinking. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, and we also need, 5A is also to schedule a special election. The chair will entertain a motion regarding that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen call a special election on August 17th, 2023, and the ballot questions for the special election be as follows. Question 1, shall the town of Dudley be allowed to assess an additional $556,111.09 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding public safety services, Fire Department, $366,764.55. Police Department, $189,346.54 for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. Question 2, shall the town of Dudley be allowed to assess an additional $534,304.50 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding the Highway Department for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023? Question 3, shall the town of Dudley be allowed to assess an additional $133,698 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding general governmental and municipal services, administration, town accountant, information technology expenses, Board of Assessors, town treasurer, municipal expenses, town clerk, planning board, board of health, building inspector, council on aging, veteran services for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023? Question 4, shall the town of Dudley be allowed to assess an additional $297,528.41 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding the Pearl L. Crawford Memorial Public Library for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023? And question 5, shall the town of Dudley be allowed to assess an additional $901,683 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding the Dudley Charlton Regional School District assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? None? Oh, Mr. Marson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to call out that we heard you. If you add up those numbers for the first 4 questions, they're a lot less than they were. Because the department heads sharpened their pencils, made additional cuts that they didn't want to make and shouldn't have made, but they did. So we want to give people the option of what they would like to fund. We heard you. Thank you.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 6, public hearing. Board of Selectmen vote to opt out of mail-in voting for special election on August 17, 2023. Chair calls the meeting open at 7:17 p.m.
I think, Mr. Chairman, Laurie might be here.
Laurie?
Yep, here she is. She can summarize what we're asking at the public hearing and for the board to vote on.
Thank you, Laurie.
According to the Mass law right now, in order for us to opt out of the vote by mail for any election, it has to be done 45 days before the election, which would mean July 3rd. So that's why I asked for it to be put on the agenda tonight. The reason being is we already have no money for this election. This is the second unfunded election this calendar year that we've had. The vote by mail is a huge expense. We would not get reimbursed from the state from it because it is optional. We only get reimbursed for the ones for the federal and state ones. If we're looking at the best scenario here, I believe we're all still looking at a 10% cut. I'm going to be sharing my assistant town clerk. There is no way I'm going to be able to get ballots made out if you went with that, not to mention the cost, just the time to do that. I'm not going to be able to do it, so that's why I'm asking for that to be done. I am going to be scheduling a Board of Registrars meeting, and as long as 50% of us, I only vote if it's a tie, as long as 50% vote to have early voting, I would recommend that for 2 days before this election. So it would give people the 12 hours on the election day and then 2 days of early voting.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from your board? Mr. Mayor? No?
Not on that subject.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the public on mail-in voting? Is it on mail-in voting? Nothing? Okay. Chair closes the public hearing at 7:19 p.m. What is the pleasure of the board? Mr. Johnson?
Make a motion to opt out of mail-in voting for the special election on August 17, 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any conversation on that? No? Mr. Marcy?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would like to see some early voting, so hopefully so that way we can engage more people based on the time of the year, so we can see what the registrars come back with on that one.
Mr. Sullivan?
Just wanted to say, it's mind-boggling that in 2021, we are in such a financial bind that we are going to make it, I mean, not 21, I'm sorry, 23. We are going to take away an avenue to make it easier for people to vote. I mean, they still can do absentee, and they still come in person, I get it. But it's just mind-boggling with everything that's going on in this country, in this state, that we're gonna take another avenue for people to participate away because we don't have the funds. Again, reactive, not proactive. Not anybody's fault individually.
No, it isn't. Anything else on this?
Is this a roll call?
Roll call vote?
Jay Johnson, aye.
Mark Landry, aye.
John Marcy, aye.
Hugh Sullivan, aye.
Barry Sigenovich, aye, unanimous. Department head comments. Jeff, do you have anything? Nothing? Chief Kochanowski, anything?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all my membership and their family members for the show of support and all the hard work they've been doing to get the message out, how dire the situation is, holding signs and getting the information out there. Thank you to all of them. They're doing a great job. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carmignani, do you have anything?
Just as was mentioned earlier, some of the fixed costs, I'm an open door, not literally, but if there's a question from the FAA, Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, what does this cost? I'm sure somebody's going to catch you at the grocery store, whatever it is. I can go that deeper dive and be able to come up with an executive summary as to Worcester Regional Retirement Systems assessment, workers' comp, the difference between workers' comp and IOD coverage for public safety, whatever it is. Also, you're all going to get a love note from me. We've got the 2024 tax bills hitting the mail tonight, so thank me and the assistant, local vendor Karen Graphics, for getting those out on time. I think your assessor had made mention of that. As much as things are busy, you need to get things done at a particular time. If not, you lose your ability to collect them. I sit here and give you a ton of great news, but one more thing. Again, if people need information, I'm a good source. I'm an unbiased source. I can put together some numbers for you, maybe some historical numbers in the event there's ever a question. Better perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmignani. Ms. Carter?
Before we go tonight, I apologize. I would like to take a moment to thank the library staff. We have a phenomenal, amazing staff, and they give their heart and soul to this town. It has been a pleasure to serve the residents of Dudley. Please come and see us before the 22nd and give the staff your thanks in person.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Look forward to seeing you in August. Mr. Horn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Guy Horn, 3 Linda Vista Lane, Chairman of the Planning Board. I'm sorry I was not able to attend on Monday's meeting, but I was just wondering if you could tell me, or somebody could tell me, with the vote that was just taken, the budget for the Planning Board, where are we going to stand at?
Mr. Ritter?
The town planner is going to be reduced to 1 day per week
So
from
50,
November 1st, depending on the outcome of the vote.
so a 50% cut.
50% until November 1st.
Okay. So at our planning board meeting on Wednesday night, we discussed the possibility of doing something that we've thought about before, The town of Dudley doesn't employ a town engineer. We do a contract engineer. The applicants pay for the engineer. We were thinking, why couldn't we do the same thing for our town planner and have the town planner basically be contracted by the applicants? So for the remaining time that the town can't afford to pay for the town planner, we could make that up by charging it to the applicants that need his services. Otherwise, we're going to have subdivisions on hold, we're going to have new projects that can't come forward. I mean, all the applicants pay it now for a consultant town engineer. I mean, why wouldn't they? I don't think they would be unwilling to pay for a consultant town planner. So we voted at our meeting on Wednesday night unanimously that we thought it was a good idea. I don't know if we need permission from the Board of Selectmen to do this. I don't think we do. We're an elected board also, but I just wanted to let you know that that's what we're looking at, to keep our town planner funded for the remainder of the year.
Mr. Ritter?
Everybody in unison. I think it's definitely something we should be taking a look at, particularly as we approach the override vote. I wouldn't rule anything out at this point.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Moore.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Lori, do you have anything else? Not used to having this many department heads here at a meeting.
Just one quick comment. Mr. Sullivan was saying that we're taking away more options for the voters. They do still have the option for the absentee ballot, so if they're away on vacation or they can't make it on election day, they can still do the absentee ballots. So they do have that option as well.
I did mention that.
Thank you. Anyone from the schools like to come up and speak during department heads? You don't have to, but giving you the option. No? No need? Okay. Chief Garlowitz.
Just real quick, 4th of July is this weekend. I know they're selling fireworks over the state line. They're illegal in Mass. Be respectful of your neighbors, and have a safe 4th of July.
And yours, Chief.
Thank you. Right, that's all the department heads on the Board of Selectmen comments. Mr. Johnson.
I don't think the weight of the decisions that need to be made in this room are lost on anyone in this table or the table in front of me or any of the department heads. It's a worst case scenario for what we're looking at, and that's not for a lack of preparation from what's within legal and within our control. So let's see this through. It's not, although panic and hysteria are easy to fall into, it's a time for leadership and calculated attack. So I thank you for being professional and working through the issues.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Johnson just said. It's wear on everybody, no doubt about it. It's an unimaginable situation. We will do the best we can. We've been doing the best we can. Extra meetings when we show up. Mr. Brewer's working the phones. I know the school reaches out with their numbers. So it is. It's stark reality. Echo what the police chief said. It is 4th of July coming up. It's a time to remember what this country is, what this country is made of. Please celebrate. Enjoy your family. As Chief Carlowitz said, leave the fireworks to somebody else in another state.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank everybody for getting involved. We do have a tough road ahead for everyone. I want to thank all the departments for their hard decisions and understanding. And I would like to ask all the voters, please, let's get together We should all be engaged in this at this point. We need to get out there, we need to make a decision together, we need to vote and make our future as a town a successful one, a better one, a less stressful one, if possible. With that being said, let's remember what holiday we're going into. And I want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Marcy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody who came to this meeting in the last several. It's really good to see everybody here. And I think everybody knows, the word, the weight of what is happening here. I don't think that is lost on anybody here, anybody watching at home or who will watch this. It's all out on the table. The books are open. It's there. The choices are pretty clear at this point. I want to touch on something I said one of the last meetings about the revenue side. We always talk about, cutting and, and increases and stuff, but the question always comes up about what can we do to increase revenue? And that's always economic development, which we have some projects like the mill that haven't monetized. The cannabis projects that we have not monetized the way they're supposed to. So we hope for the best for them, but they're not there yet to the point where we can plan on it as revenue. I'll say it again, Nichols College. A lot of people now, why doesn't the college pay? Why won't they pay their fair share? This board, this town administrator, the town administrator before, and the one before him has asked the current president, the past president of Nichols, to come to the table and talk about a pilot, and we were summarily told what to go do with ourselves. Okay, I'm gonna say that probably for the last time, because it's the truth. That's not the type of relationship they want to enter in with us yet, but we'll keep trying. Okay? We gotta be a good partner with them, they have to be a good partner to us. So, this, like I said, this is a choice. We talk about Dudley Pride, Dudley Strong, coming together. That's why the second vote was set up the way it was, so Dudley could stand as one. And now we're asking the voters to have make Dudley whole. Okay? Because it's a zero-sum game. You take $1 and fund the school, it has to come from the town, or vice versa. Right? There's a limited number of funds, and all things have been considered on that. So I ask everybody to stand up for their town. Nobody likes this, but at the end of the day, if all this stuff passes, we'd still have probably the lowest tax rate in southern Worcester County, and probably most of the state. Under, somewhere in the 11s is what I would guess. Again, we're not taxers by nature, but we're at that point where Dudley can't move forward at the rate we're at. And we've come so far on the public safety front in particular, on the quality of life front. Breaks my heart. Have to close the library, guys. It's unconscionable. We have these things for a reason. Dudley's a great place to live. Let's keep it that way. And again, I appreciate everybody's attention to this and being part of the process at the town meeting, and the vote that'll follow that. And hopefully we can stay away from a super town meeting, because Dudley should decide its own destiny, not have another town come in and do that for us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marcy. This is definitely an ugly situation. I'm going to share with you all my thought process, and I'm not going to speak for the board, I'm going to speak for myself. Why I supported the override is one question, and that's because it's the town. How do you pick one thing that you don't want? I mean, out of all these things, what out of all of that do you not want? It's like buying a new car with 4 flat tires. It's the whole thing it's the whole town is what makes this town. It's not one or two things. It's all the pieces. And I mean, people wanted a menu, you got a menu. And I'm hoping you vote for all of it, because all of it is what makes this town what it is. Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn and go into executive session.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
You were here, I'm sorry.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Chairman, we are facing a real precarious situation in town here. These extra cuts are going to literally implode our town. And that can't happen. We've got a override menu sitting in front of us, and I think we owe the taxpayers and the people that are here a little bit more discussion on the way this is constructed, other than just passing it over and throwing it back on a ballot. We put 2 overrides on a ballot, and both of them were defeated, and they were defeated pretty largely. We're going to try to get another one put on the ballot. So I think we ought to have a lot more discussion as to how we construct this, because 2 of them that we constructed, they didn't fly. So we cannot afford to construct something that's not going to fly, because we can't make these cuts. We have to have something that's going to fly. So when I look at the questions that you put down, when you add up the first 4 questions, the total amount doesn't come to $900,000 that we have to come up with to stave this problem off. It comes up to $1.5 million, which means that we're back to requesting from the taxpayer level funding again. We've tried 2 level funding. So now we're asking for level funding again. And you're also asking for the $900,000. So even though you broke it down into a menu of style, it's still coming back very similar to what we've already asked.
Chairman, it's 10% reduction. If we were at 1.6, we're at 1.5.
So why is this add up to 1.5 million? It should, if it's a 10% reduction, all of these should add up to $901,000. If we're gonna go with the 10% reduction.
10% or 1.6?
We passed the budget with a 10% reduction. It was not a good, wasn't great, but at least it gets us to tomorrow for the next budget coming up next year.
You said yourself, Mike, it came to 1.5 and change. If you take the
add up
1.6
questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the entire town budget. That's $1.5 million.
What does that come to?
$1.5 million.
Okay. What was the override from the town side last time?
The last time we put an override up, the town, to go to level service and the assessment, was about 2.5, 2.6 million.
That was with the school. That was with the school piece.
Well, now you have 6 questions on here, including the school piece. Add them up, they come to 2.4 million. So you're going back with an override that's exactly almost the same, and we're asking for a different result. The only different result we got here is that we're going to divide up the votes between the departments. So go ahead, Mr. George.
It doesn't necessarily mean that all of them will pass, right?
Correct.
People are asking for, people that said they weren't for it are suddenly saying that they would vote for just a school line.
I agree, there's some people that would do that.
The a la carte menu kind of assumes that some people will vote for some things and not for other things. So
correct.
So,
but the cliff
the assumption is not asking for
the cliff we face.
Can I just finish?
Go ahead.
Just finish one thought. By a la carte, multiple questions. If you have 3 questions about random things on a ballot, you're not necessarily assuming that all of those 3 items are going to pass. So just because there's a dollar amount attached to it doesn't mean we're going to assume that it all will pass. The town's voters will decide what passes and what not, and what doesn't. And the ones they're really angry about will fail miserably. And the ones that I would have voted for that if it was brought up, maybe those will pass. And then we'll get another check of the temperature. I know it's redundant, whether or not we look dumb trying to provide the right funding for town items, and we all know it pits department against department, you know, it's a popularity contest on line item vote.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
But every other option has failed, but if we do nothing.
But that's what I'm trying to say to you, Mr. Johnson. The same amount of money is being asked for. Two failed, and you're coming back for the same. You're just splitting it up.
No, we were,
Not the same amount.
first off, a little perspective. The 1.6 and change, I don't have the exact number, was already in a reduction of 200,000 from our initial request, the town side. Consolidating positions, 10% cut got us down to 1.6 and change. The 1.5 represents about between 5 and 10% more. 150,000. So it's not the same. It's a lower number. We're trying to get to a number that's palatable, that the townspeople, like Mr. Johnson said, maybe they support some, all, none, we don't know. We're out of options. This budget still keeps the town at a minimum of 10%. And this is gonna hopefully stave off layoffs.
Mr. Mayor, how much, if you had the gavel and you could decide, how much would you cut? How much?
I don't want these jobs cut. I don't want to do this to our town. We need $900,000. That's what we need to vote on. We don't need to vote on 1.5 million and split it up and have departments all holding signs trying to compete with each other for money. I mean, we need $900,000 to stop this, not 2.4 million. 2.4 million is in this, you add these up, it's 2.4 million. It's the same thing as we put on twice. We need $900,000 or we're gonna lay all these people off and close the library. That's what we need.
So then we put the schools against the town, Mike. We don't do nothing. We give the schools the money. We don't do, you turn around and tell them we're not doing nothing for them.
We passed a budget with a 10% cut that we can live with. Don't like it, but we already passed the 10% budget. What you're doing here is you're moving the budget for all the town departments back to level funding. Add it up, it's 1.5 million. That's back to level funding. So that's what you're asking for. And if you want to do that, and all the town heads want to go try to do this one more time, I just think when you put the same thing up on a ballot, third time in a row, people are going to come out and do the same thing. Maybe one of these passes. I don't know.
The number's gone down every time.
He's right.
Very similar.
It's similar, but what do you cut? Do you say I'm going to keep one police officer and one firefighter? Do you cut that? Do you cut supplies? Where do you? At some point, you got to draw the line and say we can't cut anymore. It's either this or Mr. Ruda.
Just because there's been a lot of talk, I just want to bring it down and kind of explain it a little bit more plainly. We had, Article 3 was a contingent and non-contingent budget, right? So Article 3, as everybody remembers, the non-contingent side was a 10% reduction for the town, and it level funded the district. The town, so now with the new assessment of 901, added to the level funding amount, now it puts us out of balance based on the 10% because the override failed. So the town starts at a 10% overall reduction because the override failed. On top of that, we go out of balance by $901,000. So we have to make these additional cuts, library, cops, firefighters, everything else. So if we just put the schools on and the school passed at 901, we would be back to 10%. That was what we were trying to avoid with the first two overrides. We would be back at funded at 10%. You'd have people funded for 6 months, half a year, and all the additional cuts. But we would be back at the non-contingent 10% level. The town took the 1.6 million that it requested the first two times, removed $150,000 from things like two additional firefighters to backfill the call and per diem fire department because we weren't getting trucks out the door. We scrapped that idea. That's part of the reduction from 1.64. What we're trying to do with the 1.5, split up into menu items, is to bring the town back up to the standard it is today. Because even if only the 901 passes, we're still on the municipal side going to be down 10%. We've cut it all up into a menu option: school, highway, public safety, including fire and police, library, and that's where we stand. I just don't want people to get confused as to what's happening. So, let's pretend all the municipal requests failed, 4 of the 5 failed, and the school passes. The town is back at the non-contingent 10% reduction level. And from there, any other question that passes on the municipal side puts money back into the department for which the question passed. The 10% reduction was, as we talked about since January, was not a level that the town wanted to or could sustain or wanted to live with. But beyond the 10% reduction, we're looking at an additional $901,000 that has to be reduced. 10% gets us to next spring, but it doesn't get us very far into 25, because for example, the patrolmen that were only funded, what we were able to retain with the 10% reduction, are not going to survive the FY25 budget, barring any change in our tax rate. The math doesn't work. We don't generate enough revenue to pay for the cost of things: school assessment, cost of fuel, cost of salary, contractual obligations, so forth and so on. And we're not anywhere near being out of whack above and beyond what other town services are provided in Oxford, Webster, Southbridge, and so forth. If anything, it's very easy to fact check me. We are way below funding levels in comparison to those towns. If we go lower, we lose more stuff. The people have to say to themselves, we want to maintain what we have now, and vote yes. We want to keep the library open. We don't, and the worst thing that can happen right now is that departments don't work together. If we have a split in that, if we don't have teachers standing next to firefighters, standing next to cops, standing next to trustees, then it does us no good.
We good now? We're good now? Mr. Landry?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn and convene into executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body. The chair so declares. MOA Dudley Firefighters Local 4271, Stephen Shinard.
Excuse me, Chairman.
We have a second?
That's
Motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mark Landry, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Carrie Siganovich.
Make a motion to adjourn the FAA meeting?